Hello and welcome to Chat UTD. A few things to get into today. The biggest news, I think certainly bigger picture news, is that Ruben Amorim has pretty much been confirmed as United's manager. The agreement is there, totally signed, sealed, delivered, apparently will be announced imminently. But he won't take charge until after the international break, which means Ruud has got 3 more games in charge. So we'll look at that. We'll look back to last night and the win against Leicester. And we will also look, I want to just talk about some bigger picture stuff around bounces that occur when a manager leaves a club and why it's not exclusive to Man United, and why I think, again, there's a bit of a narrative out there that goes unchallenged. There's a convenient narrative that lets managers off the hook a little bit, in my opinion. So Amorim is confirmed pretty much. Fabrizio Romano, the Oracle of football, has said that it's a done deal, so that's good enough for me. 2.5-year deal, and he will start after the international break. What do I think about that? I think it's a little bit of an anticlimax, given that we were led to believe earlier in the week that he was going to be in place for the Chelsea game. It's not a terrible thing, but I think if he wasn't in charge for Chelsea, I'd have liked him to certainly be in charge the week after. But then, I think, do we play Chelsea? We've got 3 games next week, essentially, I think. We've got Chelsea, we've got a game in Europe, and then we've got Leicester. So effectively, there's 1 more week of football without the manager. And if he'd have come in just after Chelsea, that would have meant he'd hardly had any time to prepare for, I don't know how you say their name, PAOK? Or is it PO? AK, whoever they are, the team we're playing in Europe anyway. He wouldn't have had a lot of time to prepare for that, and it really would have been just a Leicester game anyway in the league. So it's not that big a deal. It just feels a bit strange, to be honest. It's a bit of a weird one. We didn't go and get Sir Alex Ferguson and say, I'll tell you what though, our respect, you manage Aberdeen for another couple of weeks, and while they get their house in order, and we're all friends here, but I always say football's changed, don't I, and that we shouldn't hark back. So maybe it's the right thing to do, perhaps. It does mean that Ruud has got another 3 games in charge. I'm going to do a proper video on the appointment of Amorim, probably tomorrow, with a beer on a Friday night. I think I'd prefer to kind of take my time with that and collect my thoughts a little bit more. The 2.5-year deal is interesting. Not opposed to it at all. I think we have to accept that football now, you give manager a 4-year, 5-year deal, you're probably being unrealistic. I think it's quite pragmatic and sensible to give a manager a 2.5-year deal. If he does really well, you can extend it. There's a few people in uproars, well, this is going to keep the cycle going. Well, yeah, if he's not good enough, it will. If he's good enough, he'll get another contract. I like that. I think that shows a bit of that ruthlessness that I've been crying out for at United. We don't owe the guy a 5-year contract, so it hasn't proved anything yet at Man United. So I think it's a really sound decision to give him a 2.5-year deal. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as a whole. I find myself using the word bigger picture quite a lot. We'll use the expression bigger picture, but we'll look at the bigger picture around that maybe a little bit more tomorrow. I've said what I said about Amorim in the previous video. What I want is somebody to come in and from the moment he's here, he puts his style of play onto the players, he imposes his will. I hope that he can help us to play attacking attractive football. If it's 3-4-3, I want him to play that system straight away. I want him to bring young players in, particularly if he looks at that system and thinks there's gaps in it with the senior players where they can't live up to his expectations. Then I would look to the player who plays in that position from the youth. Are they good enough? If they're good enough, I'd bring them in. I'd like to see Harry Amass. I'd like to see Jack Fletcher. Possibly Wheatley. So, I'm sure there's others as well. I would like him to promote youth as prolifically as possible, really, especially if there's gaps in the system. And I want to enjoy watching the team. He's got 6 months to do that now. It was looking like he'd have 6.5, 7, but he's got 6 months to do that. And we'll see. There's no such thing as a surefire thing, but this certainly isn't it. He's an exciting young manager. I think it's reading between the lines, just seeing a few City fans that I know. I think it's boiled a bit of piss amongst them, which is a good sign. I think that's they're being quite narky, like why would you write off your career and go to United? But it's very spiteful. It's very like, well, they are bitter, aren't they, City fans, even though they've won all those trophies recently. So that maybe potentially is a good sign. But the truth is, and the honest answer to how he's going to do at United is we don't know, and it's dependent on so many things. Some of which are down to him, some of which are down to the club, some of which are down to the players, and it all intermingles. And we can see what happens. There's no definitive answer as to how this is going to go. And I think, in terms of the actual fans that go to games and fans that are just hopefully like the people that watch my videos and myself, that are probably not obsessed with looking on Twitter all the time, and those, or certainly not prolific on those platforms and living in a fantasy world like a lot of people on Twitter do. I think real fans are cautiously optimistic. And I think that's probably sensible. I'll do more on Ruben Amorim tomorrow. On last night, I'm not one to get carried away, but I think we should scrap Ruben Amorim, give Ruud a 5-year contract, and I think we're going to win the League Cup, the FA Cup, and the Europa League now, after that 5-2 win against Leicester. There will be some tit on Twitter who will say something not dissimilar to that. Back to the real world. I think I just take last night for what it is. It was almost like a night of nostalgia. To give context, if people haven't seen videos I've done before where I've said about Ruud, and I have done videos where I've spoken about him as a player. I love Ruud van Nistelrooy, and we all have our favourites, don't we? And I think most United fans love Roy Keane. Most United fans love Eric Cantona. Most United fans love Brian Robson. Most United fans love Sir Bobby Charlton. But then we've had so much to choose from down the years that we've all got our personal favourites that maybe others don't feel the same about. So to give context, I like Rio Ferdinand. I think he was a brilliant player for United. I watch him on TV and I think, yeah, you were a bit of a standard bearer when you were there. You came into a culture of standard bearers and you kept it going. We were lucky to have you. You and Vidic were brilliant, and I can be like that, but I don't feel any emotion towards him. I don't feel a pull towards him. Whereas others would love him. And Ruud, for me, I had a season ticket when he first joined. I saw his debut. I think I saw his last game as well, actually, and most of the games in between. And I loved his passion. I loved his cockiness, his rawness, his arrogance. And it wasn't just the goals that he scored. It was his personality and how much instantly I felt like he got United. The United and Arsenal thing, he was a big part of that. The penalty he got when we beat Arsenal after he'd missed the penalty a year before, and we beat Arsenal and ended their unbeaten run. And he runs to the corner flag and he's emotional and stuff like that. He's one of them where he scored so many goals, but so many of those goals I could tell you exactly where I was, exactly who I was with, and exactly what I was doing at the time, even though it was more than 20 years ago. And some of that because it was at the game. But if it wasn't, I could tell you what pub I was in. I could tell you what I was doing, where I was watching it, because he just means a lot to me. He triggers strong emotions, positive emotions in me. So to see him walk down the touchline looking all smart, I actually felt very proud of him. I felt like he's one of ours, even though he's only there for 5 years. I felt like it's our Ruud, which ours is a bit of a northern expression. Our kid, our Ruud fantasy seems a bit weird, but he just represents what I think a Man United person should be, and I love him. So to see him walk down the touchline was amazing. To see him celebrating the goals, to see him do that to the crowd, like, I know that could be very generic, but he does it in a very specific way. Just nice to see him get the chance to be there, and if only briefly, represent the club in a really important position. In terms of the way we played, it was very simplified. I think it's probably what Solskjaer did when he came in. Not wanting to draw too many comparisons, but it's just, lads, just go and do the basics, right? This is Leicester's much changed team. We should smash these. Don't overcomplicate it. Play to your ability. Play. Express yourselves. But we were quite direct at times, not in a long ball kind of way, but it was just quicker. It was snappier. It felt fresher. It wasn't that different. And you know, Ten Hag could have overseen that win last night. You know, Leicester changed their team quite significantly, and we played pretty much our strongest team, with the odd exception here or there. So we beat Barnsley 7-0. I don't think I don't think it would be beyond the realms of possibility that if Ten Hag stayed, we wouldn't have got a result like that last night. And so, but it's the feelings that go with it are different. I think the whole place felt a bit lighter and a bit fresher, a bit more energy about it. And we scored 5 goals. You know, it's good going. Be a different game on Sunday. You know, obviously that's a big test, but he'll have had longer on the grass with him, won't he, doing what he wants to do. It was the same system, it was the same formation, it was just more simple, I'd say. Some really good goals, and Casemiro's first goal is an absolute perler. The second goal is a beautifully worked goal, and Garnacho's finish is really, really good. I liked Casemiro's second goal, actually. I like that kind of players being aware and alert to a rebound, and he's just absolutely smashed it. Bruno got a bit lucky, obviously, with the first goal, and the second goal. His second goal was a bit of a mistake, but still quite smart finish. We still look pretty vulnerable at the back, I have to say. So as you know, I've spoken a bit recently about challenging the narrative that these players keep getting managers sacked. My thought is these players aren't good enough. I think player power exists at United, but the vast majority of them have been recruited very recently. So what we need to do is recruit better players. What we also have to consider, though, and I think managers get a free ride here, is that part of a manager's job is to motivate, engage, and get buy-in from the players. And that's why when a manager who has lost that ability to do that leaves a club, not just Man United, it's not exclusive to Man United, what we see is that manager leaves, a new manager comes in with he's got no fatigue towards that club whatsoever, so he's got absolute freshness, he's speaking with conviction, he's got his chest out, he's giving his ideas across. This is what we're going to do together, and you know, there's that. This feels good, whether that's an interim manager or a permanent manager, and the players are lifted by 3 or 4% in terms of the way they feel about themselves, their psychology, their buy-in is back, their engagement is back, their motivation is back, and you see better performances. Listening to certain sections of our fan base, you'd think that was exclusive to Man United. It isn't. That's psychology. That's people. So you could look at teams throughout the last, go back however long you want, but let's say 30 years since the Premier League started, roughly 30 years ago. Any team who sacks their manager when they're not doing so well and another manager comes in, if it's the right appointment, they start to pick up form. It's the same players. Did they just give up under their previous manager? Sometimes yes. But it's that manager had stopped being able to get something out of those players. If it was just about players, then wouldn't need managers. Man United won the league by 11 points in 2013, and with pretty much the same squad finished 7th the season after. That's not because they didn't want to do well for David Moyes, or they downed tools. That's not the character of those players. But watching them, you might think that. He couldn't inspire them, he couldn't motivate them. Ferguson was a genius. Managers are very important figures, and how they lead the dressing room and how they lead with their communication in particular, I think it's massive. And you either get buy-in or you don't. And the problem for United has been managers have come in and they've not always got the players that they want. I do understand that there's mitigating factors for some managers, and they've been undermined at times. But another part of it has been they've lost the ability to inspire the dressing room, and that's part of your job as a manager. So it's human nature then when someone else comes in that you're going to pick your game up. I think we underestimate just how important that is. In terms of then if you're 3 or 4% better than you were before, you're going to play better. It's not a conscious choice that's been made. I don't want to play for you anymore, or very rarely is it, maybe sometimes, but very rarely is it, I don't want to play for you anymore, I don't like you. And then another manager comes out, I like you, I'm going to play for you, I'm going to play better now. Some of these players aren't good enough, but they're good enough to be better than 14th, and they'll probably play better in the next few weeks. The trick is, and as I mentioned the other day, you have to have somebody who can come in and do that over a period of time, not just for a few weeks or months. And let's hope Amorim can do that. But I'm seeing people absolutely slate Casemiro for playing well last night. What should he have done? Carried on playing shit. And actually, he's been playing pretty decent in the last few weeks anyway. But yeah, it's part of a manager's job to inspire players, and if you can't do it anymore, then obviously that's a big problem. But it doesn't mean necessarily players are downing tools and then they pick them back up again when another manager comes in. I don't think it's as straightforward as that, and that's just not the way. That's not the way human nature works. But I think the thing for us, particularly my generation of fans, I grew up with one manager, so all of this stuff was going on around me with other clubs like Southampton and Newcastle and Aston Villa and Everton and Norwich and Liverpool for a period of time, obviously, and not really Arsenal because they had Arsene Wenger, but you know what I mean. There's tons of clubs that were around us, Chelsea in particular, who were consistently sacking managers and getting exactly what we've seen over the last few years when we've had a new manager come in and there has been a bounce. But it's not in our frame of reference. We don't care about it because we've got Sir Alex Ferguson. He's never going to retire. He'll die in the dugout, as people used to say. So we never had to think about it. So it's relatively new to us. We haven't had this. So I think that's why we think it's exclusive to our club. Players, they stop playing for Ten Hag and look at them now. They're picking up the game and they're scoring 5 goals. They're an absolute disgrace. It's just human nature. And I think, Ruben Amorim's coming in to a team that bar Dalot, Rashford and Bruno, that team is Erik Ten Hag's team. They're his signings. So 8 of the first 11 are signings he's made, or young players that have come through in that time with Garnacho and Mainu. Everyone else is his signing. We don't know then if these players that Erik Ten Hag has brought in are capable of a bounce, because they've never been here before when we've sacked a manager. Bruno has, Rashford has, and Dalot has. No one else has. So I don't want to labour the point, but I don't like lazy misapprehensions that are just put out there as fact when they're not really been thought out very much. So I think it's an important point to make. Like I said, we could have a bit of a bonanza of one tomorrow. I think we might do a longer video tomorrow where I'm going to look at previewing Chelsea, looking at anything else that might happen between now and then, because there's news coming hot off the press every few minutes at the moment, it feels like, with United. We'll talk a bit more about the Amorim appointment, and I think I'll probably do a little bit of an overview of Ten Hag, but in the description I'll put the minutes as to where things start, so if people aren't interested in that particular bit, just go to the bit you are interested in, or not watch at all if that doesn't float your boat. Okay, I look forward to doing that, and I will see you tomorrow. All the best. Glazers out.